Samsung is falling behind, and it's all their fault. They used to push boundaries, curved displays, insane cameras, actual innovation, and now they're cutting corners, overhyping AI, purposely delaying software updates, and removing features just to sell you more accessories. The S25 Ultra isn't just boring, it's proof that Samsung is greedy and evil. And that's just the beginning. Their mid-range phones are designed to fail, and their earbuds are straight up worse copies of the Airpods Pro. Let's talk about how Samsung is evolving just backwards. First, let's talk about the S25 Ultra, and as you know, they removed the Bluetooth functionality from the S Pen, which means it can no longer be used as a remote shutter to take pictures. This is most likely Samsung's way of promoting their accessories such as the Galaxy Ring and the Galaxy smartwatch. And the reason why this is such a big deal is because people say that Samsung peaked with the S10 or the Note 9 because those phones had everything. But since then, they started to remove features such as the headphone jack, the micro SD card, IR blasters, charging bricks, and the list just goes on. They pretty much hit rock bottom. And seeing how the S24 Ultra won the smartphone of the year in Marquez Smartphone Awards in 2024, it was pretty sad to start seeing them remove features again. Some say that the S24 or the S23 Ultra is the new Note 9 because that's where Samsung started to peak again. But for them to change almost nothing, and the biggest thing this year being a feature removal, is very disappointing. Notice the camera rings around the S25 Ultra. At first glance, they make the cameras look bigger. However, if you check the specs online, they changed absolutely nothing. Apart from making the ultra-wide 50 megapixels, which doesn't necessarily mean a bigger sensor. So why do the cameras look bigger? Well, it's because they're fake. If you look at Jerry's video, these rings are purely aesthetic, and they are simply glued on with no practical reason. You can pop them off with a knife, revealing its inner beauty, essentially turning it back into the S24 Ultra. And why would Samsung do this? Simple. Bigger looking cameras equals more sales. They want you to think that you're getting an upgrade without them actually having to spend more money on bigger sensors. You see, they could have just been honest and kept the design the same, but then people like me would have complained that they haven't changed it in like 4 years. But I think I have a valid argument, and that is that the competition from Chinese phones are getting ridiculous. Companies like OnePlus, Xiaomi, and Vivo are making some monumental camera improvements to the point where they're not just as good as the Samsung Ultra models, they're actually destroying them. Take the Vivo X200 Pro. The 3x zoom lens is significantly larger than Samsung's, making it far superior for zooming. But not only that, the background blur is also much better, making it look more like a DSLR camera. And then the Xiaomi 14 Ultra has a 1-inch camera sensor which lets in an incredible amount of light. Samsung doesn't have an excuse for lagging so far behind, especially when they're already charging us $1,300. And then you get to the battery and you realize that the Vivo X200 Pro has a 6,000 milliamp hour battery that charges at 90 watts, whereas Samsung has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery that charges at 45 watts. And if you look at this battery comparison, it's not even close. Vivo is clearly light years ahead. So what the hell is going on? When the S24 Ultra came out, Samsung played it safe, but they got everything right. They weren't exceptional with anything, but everything was still really good and not far behind the competition. Marquez even made a video saying,
"And it's crazy how fast we went from last year being like, why would you buy anything else? To this year saying, you could buy anything else."
What's really sad is that Samsung played it too safe, and now the phone is too boring and too far behind the competition. And why are they getting away with it? Because the carriers in the US and in a lot of the Western countries are not selling these phones unless you import them or maybe just look hard enough. But for an average person, it's the iPhone or the Samsung. There isn't really an option that's both this safe and this easy to buy. In a way, it feels like they're exploiting people because they don't have access to those phones, so they don't really know any better. Another problem with the S25 lineup is how incredibly bland and generic the lineup looks. This is the S25 Ultra. This is the more budget A55, then the A35, A15, and even the cheapest A05s. Why does a $100 phone look the same as a $1,300 phone? Sure, you want the entire lineup to remind you that you're buying Samsung, but if all phones look the same, how are we supposed to differentiate what's premium and what's budget? At least the Pro model iPhone has 3 cameras, so you can tell that you've spent like $1,000 on it. But when a $100 phone looks the same as a $1,300 phone, it no longer looks unique or exclusive. Why would you spend $800 on the base S25 when the more budget A55 looks basically exactly the same, apart from the thicker bezels? This is just lazy design, and as a result makes the entire lineup look cheap and boring. I'm not saying that every single phone should look completely different just for the sake of it, but at least try something. But it just keeps getting worse. So the S25 Ultra ships with One UI 7, which on its own is basically a copy of the iOS. They have like the same activities panel and the dynamic island. They're not even hiding it anymore. But that's not even the biggest problem. One UI 7 is based on Android 15, which for Pixel users came out all the way back in October of 2024. Samsung waited until February to release the One UI 7 so that it would be exclusive on the S25 models, gatekeeping it from the older models. The S24 Ultra is supposed to get 7 years of OS updates, but so far it's only getting the beta versions of One UI 7 until at least April, which is probably when Pixel users are gonna start having Android 16 betas. So when are we actually gonna get the stable version of Android 15? In the summer? But isn't that when Android 16 is finalized for the Pixels? So essentially the new update is delayed by almost a year on a device that's only 1 year old. Okay, so what about the S23 Ultra and the S22 Ultra? We might actually get GTA 6 before those phones get Android 15. And you know what's funny? You can actually port One UI 7 on older devices before it officially comes out on the S24. But this is just proof that Samsung is delaying updates on purpose so that you go on YouTube and look up the new update and how cool it looks, but your brand new phone won't even get this update for the next couple months or years. Okay, so this is where it gets even darker for Samsung. Their budget phones aren't just cheap, they're designed to fail in a way that you can't even see. I found a repair shop video where a technician tries to fix an A-series phone that refuses to charge. It has voltage but no current, meaning that power should be there, but it isn't actually flowing. He takes the phone apart and finds the culprit, a tiny FPC connector that's so fragile it develops microscopic fractures. The cracks are so fine that you can't even see them, but they break the circuit just enough to randomly stop the current from flowing. Sometimes it charges, sometimes it doesn't. And when a less experienced technician opens the phone up, they can't immediately tell what's wrong and they might even deem the phone as unrepairable. Samsung isn't just using cheap parts, they're using parts that are very difficult to diagnose and even repair. If this FPC connector fails, you're stuck in a loop of inconsistent charging issues with no clear fix. This isn't an accident. Samsung doesn't want you buying a budget phone and keeping it for years. They want you feeling frustrated, desperate, and regretful for cheaping out and not buying the Ultra model. It's a trap. And you know what else is a trap? AI, because for some reason that's all that the phone companies are talking about these days. If you look at the S25 Ultra trailer, 60% of it is just talking about AI. Now a huge problem with AI is that those features are not exclusive to the new models, they're exclusive to One UI 6 and One UI 7, which is coming to many other phones. So once they push One UI 7 to their older devices, the S25 Ultra is no longer an interesting phone. Also, Galaxy AI is only free up until the end of 2025, and then what? How much does it cost? What features am I losing if I don't continue paying? And what happens if not enough people pay for this subscription? Are they just gonna remove the features too? I also found something really funny. So there's a new AI feature called Now Brief, which shows you the weather, your calendar, and how you slept. Okay, so ignore how you feel. Trust your phone to tell you that you should feel like shit. Now Samsung hinted that this feature may not come to older devices because it requires a more powerful NPU. What? Are we supposed to believe that? This just sounds like planned obsolescence. This is making people question if the S24 Ultra will even get the 7 years of OS updates when they're already making some of the features exclusive. And you know how I said that Samsung is copying iOS? Well, now they're copying products too. Airpods made a video titled Samsung Doesn't Care Anymore, showing how the new Galaxy Buds 3 Pro, £219, oh, they are straight up clones of the AirPods Pro. The case is very similar. They have unnecessary lights on them and then they are facing the wrong way, so when you pick them up you have to rotate them just to put them in your ears. They are banking on the success of the AirPods Pro, so they're just completely copying them. And I know there's a bunch of other AirPods clones, but this is Samsung we're talking about. have some integrity. At least make the microphone sound good, because what the hell is this?
Deep thinking, and I was thinking about it, and it's like, mate, when was the last time the croissant? I don't have any more money. And back to that first question, like, can I stay at yours?
Actually, like, the nice lady there said I could just have him because she could see that I was staring at him for at least 8 hours.
Apple's $20 wired headphones sound better than Samsung's $200 wireless headphones. What? People on Reddit are also having a bunch of complaints, so something clearly went wrong with this product. And speaking of copying, they also made this new Android XR headset, which looks a lot like the Apple Vision Pro. At this point, Samsung isn't just playing safe, they're sabotaging their own reputation. They are focused so much on profit that their products are no longer the best or sometimes even good anymore. And the scariest part is that people don't even realize this, which I don't even blame them for, because Samsung does sound like a company that you could trust with all the history that it has. But after hearing about all this drama, I'm very skeptical about them. Don't rely too much on brand loyalty, and don't trust the company. Trust the product. Do your research. And also subscribe before Samsung removes you from this world.